Imagine you're hiking through the dense, fog-covered wilderness of Tasmania. The air is crisp, the eucalyptus trees tower above you, and the only sound is the crunch of dry leaves under your boots. Suddenly, you freeze. About 50 yards ahead, a creature emerges from the shadows. It looks like a dog, but its movements are stiff, almost like a hyena. And as it turns, you see unmistakable dark stripes running down its back. It stares at you with amber eyes for a fleeting second before vanishing into the impenetrable scrub. You've just seen an animal that was declared gone from this earth in 1936. Now, most people would tell you that's impossible. They'd say you saw a mangy fox or a stray dog. But what if the science books aren't giving us the full story? What if some of the world's most famous vanished species are simply playing the ultimate game of hide and seek? Today, we are diving deep into the shadows of our planet to uncover 6 extinct animals that might actually still be alive. We're looking at recent eyewitness accounts, grainy trail cam footage, and biological evidence that suggests these creatures never actually left us. Stick around, because the #1 spot on our list involves a predator so legendary that a $1 million bounty was once placed on its head. And just last year, a group of researchers might have finally found its secret hideout. Let's get straight into it with number 6, the Japanese wolf. Now, if you know anything about Japanese folklore, you know the wolf, or Honshu wolf, was once revered as a mountain god. It wasn't the massive, hulking beast we think of when we picture Alaskan timber wolves. This was a smaller, more compact predator, standing only about a foot tall at the shoulder, with shorter legs and a sleek coat. Officially, the last one was captured in the Nara Prefecture in 1905. But zip forward to the late 90s, and a man named Hiroshi Yagi took a series of photographs that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. He didn't just see a stray dog, he caught a canine on film that possessed the exact physiological proportions of the extinct Honshu wolf. The pointed snout, the specific shape of the ears, and that haunting, wild gaze. Even more compelling are the audio recordings. Locals in the remote mountain villages still report hearing a howl that is distinctively different from any domestic dog or known coyote. It's a deep, mournful sound that echoes through the cedar forests at night. Biologists argue that a small population could easily survive in the vast, rugged mountain ranges of Japan, where human footprints are rare. When you look at Yagi's photos, you aren't looking at a pet. You're looking at a survivor that has spent over a century avoiding the glare of civilization. Moving on to number 5. We head to the ivory-colored swamps of the American Southeast to talk about the Lord God bird, better known as the ivory-billed woodpecker. This bird is a legend among birdwatchers. It earned its nickname because that's exactly what people would shout when they saw its massive, 20-inch frame and striking white beak. Lord God, what a bird! It was declared extinct decades ago after the old-growth forests it relied on were heavily logged. However, in 2004, a kayaker in Arkansas reported a sighting that launched one of the largest search efforts in history. Researchers from Cornell University claim to have captured a grainy video of the bird taking flight. Critics say it was just a common pileated woodpecker, but the wing beat frequency and the specific white trailing edges on the wings in the footage tell a different story. Since then, there have been hundreds of acoustic recordings of the unmistakable double knock sound that only an ivorybill makes when it strikes a tree. It's a rhythmic, heavy pounding that sounds more like an axe than a bird. In the vast, alligator-filled bayous of the South, there are thousands of acres where no human has stepped in 50 years. Is it so hard to believe that a bird with a 3-foot wingspan could find a quiet corner to keep its lineage alive? The search continues, and every year, a new blurry photo surfaces that keeps the dream of the Lord God bird very much alive. Now for number 4. We have to travel to the mist-shrouded mountains of Vietnam and Laos to discuss the Saola. This creature is often called the Asian unicorn, not because it has one horn, but because it is so incredibly rare that seeing one is like finding a myth in the flesh. Technically, the Saola was only discovered by scientists in 1992, but it hasn't been seen by a professional researcher since the late 90s. It was quickly moved toward the extinct list because of habitat loss and hunting. However, the local tribes tell a different story. They describe a creature with long, straight horns and beautiful white markings on its face that still wanders the deep jungle. In 2013, a camera trap set by the World Wildlife Fund captured a single, stunning image of a Saola walking through the brush. It was the first time in 15 years the world had seen proof of its existence. This animal is the master of invisibility. It lives in such steep, wet, and leathery terrain that humans struggle to survive there for more than a few days. The Salola doesn't need to be brought back because it likely never left. It's just better at living in the jungle than we are at searching for it. Every time a camera trap flashes in the middle of the night in the Annamite Mountains, there's a chance we'll see that unicorn staring back at us. Number 3 takes us to the freezing waters of the North Pacific. Let's talk about Steller's sea cow. Imagine a manatee, but make it 30 feet long and weigh over 10 tons. This massive, gentle herbivore was discovered in 1741 and was supposedly hunted to extinction just 27 years later. It's considered one of the fastest extinctions in modern history. But here's where it gets interesting. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, Russian whalers and fishermen in the remote Bering Sea reported seeing massive, dark shapes grazing on kelp forests in shallow waters. They described animals that were far larger than any walrus or elephant seal, with skin like the bark of an ancient tree. In 1962, a Russian research vessel reported a sighting of 6 large, unidentified animals that matched the description of the sea cow perfectly. Even as recently as the early 2000s, there have been reports from the isolated Commander Islands of massive creatures splashing in the surf where no whale should be. The North Pacific is a vast, violent, and largely unmonitored place. If a small group of these giants retreated to a remote, kelp-rich cove far from human shipping lanes, they could easily survive unnoticed. The sea cow was a specialist of the cold, and as long as the kelp stays, there's a chance that the giants of the Bering Sea are still out there, bobbing in the waves. Coming in at number 2, we're looking at the Caribbean monk seal. Now this one is a bit of a heartbreaker. This was the only seal species native to the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. Christopher Columbus actually wrote about them, calling them sea wolves. They were officially declared extinct in 2008, with the last confirmed sighting in 1952 on a remote coral reef. But the Caribbean is a big place with thousands of tiny, uninhabited cays and secret lagoons. Since the 50s, there have been dozens of sightings reported by fishermen from Haiti to Jamaica. They describe a dog-like face and a sleek, tan body basking on the sand. In the late 80s, a massive aerial survey was conducted, and while they didn't find a colony, they found unidentified seal-like tracks on beaches that were supposed to be empty. Some experts believe that a few individuals might have interbred with other seal species, or better yet, a small, shy colony has moved their breeding grounds to underwater caves to stay away from humans. People often forget that the ocean is three-dimensional. If a surface-dwelling animal learns to hide in the deep or in coastal caves, it can vanish from our sight while remaining very much a part of the ecosystem. The ghost seal of the Caribbean might just be waiting for a time when the beaches are safe again. And finally, we reach number 1, the animal that defines the mystery of extinction, the thylacine, or the Tasmanian tiger. This is the big one. The last known thylacine, a male named Benjamin, died in a zoo in Hobart in 1936. Since then, there have been over 5,000 reported sightings in Tasmania and mainland Australia. We're talking about credible witnesses: park rangers, police officers, and biologists. There are videos, some grainy, some surprisingly clear, showing a stiff-tailed, striped canine loping through the bush. The thylacine has a very specific hop run that no dog or dingo can mimic because of its unique bone structure. In 2017, a group of researchers from James Cook University launched a massive survey after 2 highly credible sightings in Cape York. They didn't find the tiger, but they found that the local wildlife behavior was consistent with the presence of a large, nocturnal predator. Even more incredible, recent DNA testing of environmental water samples in Tasmania has shown unidentified carnivorous markers that don't match any known living species. The Tasmanian tiger isn't just a memory. It's a cultural icon that refuses to stay in the past. There is so much unexplored wilderness in the Australian outback and the Tasmanian interior that you could hide a whole army, let alone a shy nocturnal marsupial. Every time a car headlight catches a stripe in the darkness of the bush, the world holds its breath. So, what does all this tell us? It tells us that our planet is much more mysterious than we give it credit for. We like to think we have mapped every inch, tagged every animal, and solved every mystery. But the truth is, we are constantly being surprised. The coelacanth, a fish thought to be gone for 65 million years, was found swimming happily off the coast of South Africa in 1938. The Chicoan peccary was known only from fossils until it was found in Paraguay in the 70s. History shows us that extinction is a scientific declaration, not always a biological fact. These labels are based on the absence of evidence, but as the saying goes, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. When you think about these 6 animals, notice the common thread. They all live in the in-between places, the deep swamps, the highest mountains, the most remote islands, and the densest jungles. These are the places where human influence is at its weakest, and where nature's secrets are kept the most tightly. For a species that is being hunted or losing its habitat, the logical move is to retreat, to become nocturnal, and to develop an extreme shyness toward anything that smells like a human. We call it cryptic behavior, and it's a survival strategy that has worked for millions of years. The Japanese wolf didn't need to fight us. It just needed to climb higher into the clouds. The ivory-billed woodpecker didn't need to stay in the logged forests. It just needed to find a swamp so thick that no boat could enter. These animals are masters of adaptation. They have learned that to survive, they must become ghosts. And while it's sad that we've pushed them to such extremes, there's something incredibly hopeful about the idea that they are still out there. It means our world is still wild. It means there's still room for wonder. Think about the researchers who spend their entire lives looking for these creatures. They aren't doing it for money. Most of them are self-funded or work on shoestring budgets. They do it because they believe in the resilience of life. They do it because they've seen a track, heard a call, or talked to a local who has no reason to lie. These eyewitness accounts are often dismissed as anecdotal. But when you have thousands of anecdotes all describing the same specific movements and behaviors of a Tasmanian tiger, it starts to look a lot like data. The technology we use to find these animals is getting better every day. High-definition trail cams that can stay active for months, drones with thermal imaging that can see through the canopy, and the aforementioned environmental DNA testing are changing the game. We no longer need to see the animal to know it was there. We can find its fingerprints in a puddle of water or on a blade of grass. As this technology becomes more accessible, the places where these extinct animals can hide are shrinking. In the next 10 years, we might see the greatest period of rediscovery in human history. But there's a responsibility that comes with this knowledge. If we find out the Japanese wolf is still in the mountains, do we rush in with cameras and tours? Or do we leave the mountain god in peace? The reason these animals might still be alive is that we stopped bothering them. Their survival is linked to their isolation. If we want them to stay alive, the best thing we can do is protect the wilderness areas they inhabit, whether we have a clear photo of them or not. A forest that might hold a sauloa is a forest worth saving, regardless of the proof. Let's talk a bit more about the number 1 on our list, the thylacine, because it represents something deeper in the human psyche. We have a fascination with predators that Rao lost. The Tasmanian tiger was unique, a marsupial that evolved to look and act like a wolf. It's a stunning example of convergent evolution. The fact that people are still obsessed with it nearly 90 years after it was gone shows that we feel a collective guilt about its disappearance. Finding it alive wouldn't just be a biological discovery. It would be a form of redemption. It would be a second chance to get things right. The sightings of the thylacine often come in waves. You'll have a year where dozens of people in a specific region of Tasmania see the same thing. They describe the animal's yapping bark and its odd rocking gait. Some tell stories of it being remarkably unafraid, standing in the middle of a dirt road and staring at their car before melting into the ferns. These aren't the stories of people who are looking for fame. These are often farmers or travelers who are genuinely confused by what they've seen. When you put all these stories together, a picture emerges of a creature that is very much active, even if it's very much rare. The same goes for the ivory-billed woodpecker. The skeptics say that people are just seeing the pileated woodpecker, which is similar but smaller. But the real ivory bill hunters tell you to look at the behavior. The ivory bill has a very different way of foraging. It strips the bark off trees in a specific pattern that no other bird can match. In the forests where the sightings happen, researchers find these stripped trees, fresh and clearly worked on by something powerful. You can't fake a foraging pattern. The bird leaves its signature on the forest, even if it doesn't wait around for the camera. Is it possible that some of these creatures have evolved to be even more elusive? Natural selection tells us that the animals that were the best at avoiding humans were the ones that survived to reproduce. Over several generations, this could create a population that is hyper-aware of our presence. They might hear our heartbeats or smell our gear long before we get close. If that's the case, our current methods of searching, trekking through the woods with heavy boots and talking, are doomed to fail. We are looking for ghosts using methods designed for shadows. The ocean species like Steller's sea cow and the Caribbean monk seal face a different challenge. The ocean is changing fast: warming waters, overfishing, and plastic pollution. For these animals, the remote areas they've used as sanctuary are being encroached upon from all sides. The ocean is also incredibly resilient. Deep water trenches and complex reef systems offer hiding places that are virtually impenetrable. When a fisherman in Haiti says he saw a tan seal on a reef where nothing should be, we should listen. These people live on the water. They know every bird, every fish, and every common seal. When they see something that doesn't fit, it's usually because it really doesn't fit. The story of the Saola is perhaps the most modern example of this. It stayed totally hidden from the entire world of modern science until 1992. Think about that. A large mammal with horns over a foot long lived in the forests of Vietnam, while the world went through 2 world wars and the digital revolution, and we had no idea it existed. That should give us a massive dose of humility. If a unicorn can hide in a jungle for thousands of years, what else is hiding in the Amazon? What's lurking in the Congo? What's swimming in the depths of the Indian Ocean? The 6 extinct animals that might still be alive isn't a list of lost causes. It's a list of possibilities. It's a testament to the fact that nature is much more clever than our ability to document it. Every year, we lose species to extinction, and that is a tragedy we must fight. But every now and then, the world gives us a miracle. It gives us a coelacanth or a Chicoan peccary. It reminds us that if we leave enough space for the wild will find a way to endure. As you look at the world around you, whether it's a local park or a vast wilderness, remember that you are looking at a surface. Beneath that surface, in the shadows and the deep places, there are stories we haven't read yet. There are eyes watching from the brush that we haven't named. The Tasmanian tiger, the Japanese wolf, the ivory-billed woodpecker. These aren't just names in a book. They are the symbols of a planet that still has its secrets. If you ever find yourself in a remote place and you see something that shouldn't be there, don't be so quick to dismiss it. Trust your senses. Take a photo if you can, but more importantly, remember the moment. You might be the only human in 100 years to witness a lineage that the rest of the world has given up on. You might be looking at a ghost that refused to fade away. The search for these animals is a search for hope. It's the belief that we haven't broken the world beyond repair. Every potential sighting is a sign that there is still time to protect what we have left. If the ivory-billed woodpecker is still out there, it means there is still enough old-growth swamp to sustain it. If the Caribbean monk seal is hiding in a cave, it means there is still a corner of the ocean that is relatively pure. These animals are the ultimate indicator species, not of a healthy environment, but of a resilient one. Let's keep the conversation going. Talk about these animals. Support the organizations that protect their habitats, because whether or not the Tasmanian tiger is currently prowling through the ferns, the forest itself is real. The mountains are real, the oceans are real, and as long as they stay wild, there is a place for the ghosts to come home. The greatest discovery of the 21st century might not be a new technology. It might be an old friend that we thought we'd lost forever. When we consider the Japanese wolf, we see more than just an animal. We see a connection to a spiritual past. The people who live in those mountains don't need a DNA test or a 4K video to believe. They have their traditions, their stories, and the undeniable feeling that they are not alone in the woods. That spiritual connection is often the first thing that science dismisses, but it's often the most accurate guide to where the wild things are. The Honshu wolf isn't just a biological specimen, it's the spirit of the Japanese wilderness. If it's still out there, it's because that spirit is still alive. In the end, the mystery of these 6 animals is a gift. It keeps us looking up at the sky, down into the water, and deep into the woods. It keeps us curious. And in a world that can sometimes feel like everything has already been done, that curiosity is one of our most precious resources. So the next time you hear a strange knock on a tree or see a flash of stripes in the bushes, don't just walk on. Stop, listen, and wonder, because the world is much bigger, much older, and much weirder than you think. And somewhere, out there in the dark, an extinct heart might still be beating, waiting for the world to be ready for its return. Stay curious. Stay watchful, and never lose your sense of wonder. The history of life on Earth is far from finished, and the most exciting chapters might be the ones we thought were already closed. The ghosts are out there, and they have a lot to tell us if we're willing to listen. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon and your heart in the wild. The next big discovery could be just around the corner, or just behind that next tree in the forest. The wild is calling. Do you hear it?